Well, the Central Bank of Nigeria has revealed that importation of wheat costs the country about $2 billion annually, thereby exerting pressure on the country's food import bill. Wheat is the CBN's second highest contributor with over 5 million metric tons imported annually. While stating its commitment to address the existing challenges in the wheat value chain, wheat may now be added to the items not eligible for FX access. Well, what are the possible impacts of that? We have Michael Ogunremi, microeconomist and fixed income analyst with Chapel Hill Denham, joining us for that conversation. Hi, Michael. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Well, the CBN has hinted the addition of wheat to the items of not eligible for FX in the bid to foster domestic production. What impacts do you think this will have?
Well, so if you look at it, if the CBN decide to go ahead as planned with this policy, I think it's important to understand that this will filter into food inflation, right? That's like the immediate impact of this policy. Currently, food inflation is above 20%, and a lot of Nigerians are feeling the dire effect of it. And when you also consider the versatility of wheat, it feeds as an intermediate input to quite a lot of food items, which the average Nigerian consume. It tells a tale of increase in the level of food inflation that we're going to see. Another factor to also look at would be what happens in the parallel markets. So if the CBN is saying that we're going to restrict provision of FX, for import of wheat, then it means that manufacturers who use wheat for their production will have to fall back to the parallel markets to get wheat, and these will, of course, put more pressure in the parallel markets and sort of like increase, the rates we have in that space. So when you put these two effects together, what it simply means is that manufacturers will most likely continue to use the parallel market to sort of source for FX, and as long as they can get it, they will simply pass the increased cost to consumers in the form of higher prices, and that would filter into food inflation.
So the CBN is optimistic that Nigeria can achieve self-sufficiency in wheat production, but conversations around this have shown that the quality of wheat used as raw materials in Nigeria cannot be produced in the country. So what, from your perspective, is the reality of this?
So wheat is, it's very difficult to produce wheat in Nigeria, just like most people admit. There are very few locations where wheat can be cultivated in Nigeria, and I would say that it might just be, it might be a good strategy to sort of explore all opportunities we have in those locations, right? To sort of like produce wheat. However, considering the fact that the level of demand that we have for wheat in Nigeria is currently about 5.7 billion metric tons, it simply means that even if we explore all the opportunities we have in the locations where wheat can be cultivated, there will still be the need to import, and that simply speaks to the fact that it might be very, very challenging for us to produce the quality of wheat that manufacturers are currently using. However, what I've come to understand about agriculture is there is some sort of knowledge fusion, technology assimilation, and all of that can take place. So there are new ways and new methods of cultivating without having to go through the normal rural farming of tilling the ground and all of that. So if the CBN is really keen on ensuring that there is self-sufficiency in wheat production, they have to also find a way to bring in technologies, modern technologies that can be used to produce wheat on a large scale basis without having to subject ourselves to the climatic constraints that we have in Nigeria. If they're able to bring in technology, bring in people who can teach the rural local Nigerians how to produce this wheat, barring the climatic conditions that we have, I think it's still very possible to achieve some sort of self-sufficiency in food production.
You know, what you just said reminds me of what a member of the House of Representatives said yesterday. It was on our news that these days it seems that the CBN is doing everything, being the bank of industry, being the bank of agriculture. So with this line of thoughts that you have brought up, is it still in the area of responsibility of the CBN? Or maybe the CBN should just sell the idea to someone else or fund it or to another bank or investment area?
So what I think about this is every ministry, every parastatal within the government have responsibility, and it all boils down to compartmentalizing, responsibilities. If responsibilities are compartmentalized and every, ministry and department and parastatal, you know, put in a strong foot forward in ensuring that what they're responsible for, they go all out and achieve it. I don't think the CBN would perch into their space. For instance, if the Ministry of Agriculture, for instance, is putting their best foot forward to ensure that wheat production is at a high scale in Nigeria, you most likely wouldn't see the CBN come into that space. What you most likely see them do is, sort of provide funding, to the Ministry of Agriculture, and then allow the Ministry of Agriculture direct, chart the course of wheat production in Nigeria. Now, bringing it back to what I said earlier, as long as, the gaps in responsibilities still lies in these ministries, a lot of things that are supposed to be done by these ministries are not being done, you will have the CBN continue to do them. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, it all boils down to someone doing it, regardless of whether it is right or whether it is wrong. Although the CBN is doing too much, in my opinion, intervening in MSMEs, participating in agriculture, industrialization drive, electricity. They're doing so much, and it's also one of the issues that they are currently having, in terms of managing the arsenals that they currently have to sort of steer the course of the economy. So I would say that as long as each ministries and departments can put their best foot forward in achieving the goals and the responsibilities that they have, I don't think the CBN will patch into their space, and that sort of creates the delineation of responsibilities that we're looking to see.
All right. Well, assuming that this ban is implemented, what impacts do you see it having on the economy?
Well, if the ban is implemented, just like I said before, I think the near effect of it would be that prices of most staple commodities that are consumed by Nigerians, will most likely increase. And currently, inflation printed at 17.01% in the month of August. Food inflation was above 20%. That's already high, considering the economic situation we have in the country. Most Nigerians are unable to afford basic foodstuffs that they consume on a daily basis. And when you now factor in a ban for wheat, I simply think inflation is most likely going to increase. Another effect, just like I also said before, is in the area of exchange rates. The CBN is trying to achieve a convergence of exchange rates, which they've been able to do since the month of May. But there is still a premium. There's still this huge premium we have between what obtains in the parallel markets and then what currently obtains in the I&E window, and then in the official window, which is now adopting the I&E rates. And the impact of that premium is that we continue to see a whole lot of round tripping, speculative activity, and rent seeking activities. Between the I&E market and then in the parallel market. Right. So if the ban on wheat is fully implemented, we're going to see more demand for by importers in the parallel market, and that sort of put more pressure on the rate of the parallel market. Eventually, we'll have escalating premium, and then we'll continue to see more of this rent seeking activity, which the CBN is trying to reduce, to sort of like reduce the pressure on the naira. So for me, I think that would be the two, main impacts. What happens to food prices, and then what happens to the whole idea of FX convergence that the CBN is trying to achieve.
Okay, and then apart from this idea of restricting imports for FX, What other method do you think can solve this issue?
Interesting question. I think the first thing would be to say that restricting FX, restricting sale of FX for imports doesn't really solve our FX challenges. I like to think that Nigeria's FX challenges is the structural one and can only be solved by structural strategies. We need a stable reserve, a reserve that would not fluctuate. And for us to do that, we need a stable source of foreign exchange, which is definitely not oil. As a matter of fact, the price and the quantity, of oil that Nigeria sells is not even determined by Nigeria. So why rely on oil as the main source, as the mainstay of the economy? I don't think it's. I think it's counterintuitive. I would say that number one, I think to sort of improve the production of wheat and sort of achieve self-sufficiency instead of restricting sale of FX. I think one of the things that the government can do is the cost savings that would have from not using FX. The CBN can channel this cost saving into large-scale agricultural production of wheat. Just like I said before, Nigeria may not have the necessary climatic conditions, but if technology is anything to go by, if technology has taught us anything, it is a fact that we can beat natural conditions to sort of achieve our goals, right? So I strongly believe that there are a whole lot of technologies and ideas and strategies that can be used to produce wheat despite the climatic constraint that we have. Another thing that the CBN can do is to latch onto derivatives, right? So we have crude oil, we need wheat. Instead of using our dire FX or FX reserve to pay for this wheat, you can have a crude for wheat swap. You enter into a commodity future, that sort of helps the country to take custody of wheat, sometimes in the future for an agreed amount of crude. The benefit